Good morning, friends in Christ, and welcome to our discussion and kind of summary video for Chapter 1 of Dr. Edward Sri's book, Men, Women, and the Mystery of Love. My name's Father Matthew Wheeler, and it's a great privilege to be with you, to provide these videos for you so that you guys can have great discussions about these really important ideas and teachings of Pope St. John Paul II. Once again, it's meant to be practical. So we do the reading, we kind of explore the ideas, but then at the end of the day, it's really about how can I make this a part of my life so that my relationships can be more fruitful and can be more life-giving. So, chapter 1, it's called 3 Types of Friendship, and it begins with a discussion on what's called the Personalist Principle. So, taking a step back before we delve into that principle, we remember that John Paul II, he's a philosopher. He's also a theologian, but he's a philosopher. And he's what you would call a personalist philosopher, meaning he sees the world through the lens of the human person. So how should we act? What do we believe about our relationship to creation? It has a lot to do with, well, who are we as human persons? And the personalist principle is going to kind of like lay down the foundation of a personalist philosophy, aka kind of the lens through which you see the world. And the personalist principle says a person must not be merely treated as a means to an end for another person. As human beings, we have dignity, and we are to be respected and not used. That's kind of the basic idea behind the personalist principle. So as we enter into relationships, our dignity always has to be respected. So hashing out that why human dignity a little bit. It's because we are made in the image and likeness of God. And we remember that God is reason itself, right? The Logos. God has intelligence. And as his creatures made in his image and likeness, we too have intelligence. God is all powerful and almighty. God can do whatever he so chooses. He is totally free. Well, as human beings, we too have wills, and that we can choose in freedom because God has made us that way. And at the end of the day, God gave us our minds so that we could see and identify the good. And then he gave us our free will so that we could then choose the good for ourselves. So as human beings, it's a big deal that we always allow someone to use their mind and their intelligence to pursue the good in freedom. And when we end up using people and disrespecting their dignity, it's because usually we're trying to manipulate them. We're trying to control them. We're trying to limit their ability to identify the good with their intelligence and then choose that good in freedom. So we have human dignity. It always has to be respected. Dr. Sri then goes into talking about a philosophical worldview that's quite opposed to that. It's called utilitarianism. Utilitarian, utility, or use. So it's a worldview that's based upon maximizing pleasure for oneself. So utilitarians seek, through their choices, to maximize their pleasure regardless of the costs, regardless of what, might get destroyed in that process. And they seek to choose things that minimize their pain or minimize their discomfort. You can already see this is probably a worldview that's pretty selfish. These are the people who are just in it for themselves. They're just thinking about themselves, right? So this is a worldview that's in contrast to kind of that personalist, human dignity always needs to be respected no matter what. We can't just use people for our own selfishness, right? That's kind of where Dr. Sri, this word John Paul II, is going with this. So this utilitarianism, though, I mean, we all suffer from. We've grown up in a world that's very utilitarian. So, for example, you get a text message from a friend who's inviting you to go do something on Friday night. Well, the invitation comes in, you see it, but you don't respond right away. Why? Because you want to keep your options open. Well, maybe something else is going to come up. Maybe something better is going to come my way, and I want to do that instead. So I'm going to wait. Why? Because I want to maximize my pleasure because something better might come in. But if, Thursday night rolls around, nothing's coming, okay, then I'll go do this and whatever. It'll still be fun, right? So not the worst thing in the world, but you can see how it reflects kind of this attitude of maximizing me, right? So obviously, It's not great, not a really good worldview or attitude or mindset, right, to live our lives by. So Dr. Sri then says, okay, there's love and there's use. It's the utilitarians who end up using people for their own pleasure. But it's the people who love, who always keep the human dignity of the other in mind and then act in ways that respects that, even if it means personal sacrifice. Even if it means I have to die to my personal pleasure, right? So ultimately, we're being invited to embrace that attitude, a loving attitude, because I don't know, those utilitarian motives, pleasure, etc. Those, people are only pleasurable for so long, right? People, and they come and go, and anyway, it's not a good foundation for a relationship. Ultimately, love is going to be the best foundation for any authentic relationship. So he then breaks down Aristotle's 3 types of friendship. So Aristotle, Greek philosopher, going back thousands of years, he said that there's 3 kinds of friendship. So real quickly, just there's the first kind, the friendship of utility. We're friends because we both get something from this friendship. Think of at work, I sell something, you want to buy what I have to sell you. It's the product that draws us together. So we interact with each other, we're friendly, we might go grab lunch every now and then, but basically I have a product you need, that's what brings us together. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? It's not the deepest kind of friendship. And sadly, once the product is no longer useful to that guy, or I run out of that product, the relationship crumbles, the relationship falls apart. Second type of friendship, Aristotle says, is the friendship of pleasure. So in this case, it's not something physical, maybe utility that I get from but it's something pleasurable, right? Oh, he's so funny, so I like to be around him because he's funny, he's entertaining, And once again, there's nothing wrong with that per se, but the second he stops being so funny, or he kind of loses that sense of humor, or I change my sense of humor, we're no longer going to be friends. It's not the deepest foundation. Or, I don't know, there could be, she's a really good singer, and I just love hearing her voice. So it's her singing that I find enjoyable and pleasurable, and that's what kind of keeps it going. But I don't know, I move away, or her voice isn't so good anymore, so the relationship stops. Once again, these first 2 levels of friendship, they're not bad, but they're just not the deepest kinds. But I think when we analyze our lives, a lot of our friendships are based upon either utility or pleasure, right? He says that the third and the deepest, and really the kind of friendship we need to seek, is called the friendship of virtue. So this is a type of friendship that's based upon something outside of the 2 individuals themselves. He would say it's based upon virtue, or the good, what's truly good. This is what ends up uniting. So think of a triangle. You have at the bottom corners the 2 friends, and they're both pursuing something outside of them, something good, and as they pursue that, they're going to get closer together, right? And so Aristotle would say, to the extent that we pursue virtue, the morally good life, and as we seek to do that together, we're actually going to find it's very uniting, and it leads to deep, good friendship. So he says that people who seek virtuous or friendships of virtue, they're not united by self-interest, but by the common goal of the good life. Virtuous friendship unites 2 or more people by a common end. Each person subordinates his or herself to the common end. Thus we see equality, right? Not use of each other, but we're subordinating my personal preferences, me, for this something beyond us. And if we can do that together, it's going to be really life-giving. So the only way we can avoid falling into utilitarian relationships is for us to seek out friendships of virtue, which unite us to common ends, common goods, common aims, right? So this is important in marriage, because ultimately marriage is not about seeking my own pleasure or seeking something that's useful to me. But if we could seek out marriage because marriage has an end, marriage has a goal, and that's good for me, that's the way God created it to be. If I pursue that with my spouse, we're going to get very close together. We're going to have a firm foundation for our marriage. So in marriage, the husband and wife subordinate their own desires to the common ends or goals of marriage, which is the union of the spouses which makes itself manifest in serving each other and helping each other grow in holiness, and the procreation and education of children. So as a team, husband and wife work toward this common aim to discern together how to best use their time, energy, and resources to achieve those common goals of marriage, right? Union of the spouses and the procreation, new life, and education of children. If we can focus on those two things, we're going to have a great marriage. The more we focus on me and my own selfishness and what I want to do, marriage is going to be strained. It's going to ultimately crumble. It's going to get swallowed up, right, in that utilitarian selfishness. So some examples. You come home from work, what do? Do you focus on your wife? Do you focus on your kids, how you can serve, how you can help? Or do you just focus on, gosh, I'm really tired and it's all about me, serve me, gosh, I've been working all day, don't you want to, what's it, help me out here, right? What's your attitude? Think about finances, the way you treat money. Is it just about kind of, what I want to buy and what's good for me? Or do you think about how can I invest financially speaking, right, for the good of my wife, for the good of my kids, for my family? Right? So this whole attitude, is it about me or is it about the good of my spouse, uniting me to her, serving her, loving her, helping to grow in holiness, or him, or about the children and educating them, leading them in the ways of goodness, in truth, right, in the ways of God? So where does our focus lie? That's what we kind of need to think about, and hopefully it always goes back to what's in keeping with their dignity as a man, as a woman, as a beloved child of God. So without the common end, our relationships will continually fall into relationships of use. Brothers and sisters, that's a little bit about chapter 1. I hope you can delve more deeply into those discussion questions in the group setting. And as always, take them to prayer, because the Lord will speak to you through those questions, which will lead to richer, fuller relationships in your life. Thank you, and God bless you.